Coming up on BCN Today, all K-12 and post-secondary classes in the province of Alberta have been cancelled indefinitely after evidence of community transmissions of COVID-19 emerge. South of the border, U.S. President Donald Trump is encouraging citizens to stop hoarding groceries amidst the pandemic. And amid rising tensions with Iran, U.S. forces remain on standby in the Middle East. We were given rare access to see how these troops prepare to deploy at a moment's notice. That story is coming up later in the program.
Your Canada. Your Southern Alberta. Your stories. From our studios in the heart of Lethbridge, it's BCN Today with Paul Arthur.
Hello, thanks for joining us. The Alberta government held a news conference yesterday to announce it is cancelling all K-12 and post-secondary classes effective immediately on the heels of 17 new cases of COVID-19 in the province. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Dina Hinshaw says evidence of the first community transmissions of the disease is particularly concerning, which is why the decision was made to also close daycare centres, as well as limiting religious gatherings to no more than 250 people.
The Emergency Management Cabinet Committee has approved my recommendation that students no longer attend classes in schools or post-secondary institutions until further notice. All regularly scheduled classes are cancelled, regardless of class size. We are also asking all licensed childcare facilities and out-of-school care programs to close immediately. Approved day homes are exempt due to the small number of children they care for, but they are encouraged to use sanitation practices and the guidance that we released late last week. As a parent with children in the school system and in after-school care programs, I recognize that this is extremely disruptive for many families and for those working in these sectors. This is not a decision that we are making lightly. I made this recommendation after extensive discussion with school boards and in consideration of the cases of community transmission that were identified over the weekend. To be clear, we are not closing schools. Teachers and other school staff should continue to come to their schools to plan potential alternatives for students, particularly those in grade 12. I ask parents to keep their children from gathering in large groups, as the purpose of this recommendation is to prevent the spread of the virus. I know that many parents, childcare workers, and teachers will have a lot of questions. This decision was made only a few hours ago, so many details are being confirmed. We will provide answers and make sure that Albertans get the information they need. Also effective today, we are recommending new restrictions for all long-term care facilities and continuing care facilities. I am advising that these facilities limit visits to only essential visitors at this time.
Newfoundland and Labrador is the only province in Atlantic Canada that has not closed schools as part of its response to COVID-19, and the province's Teachers Association wants that status changed. The Newfoundland and Labrador Teachers Association says the government's decision to leave schools open is inconsistent with its advice that people should avoid gathering in large groups. It is also concerned about the health and welfare of students and teachers. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney is telling Albertans to avoid all non-essential travel, and he also voiced his concerns that the federal government is not doing its job properly when it comes to screening for the virus at international airports.
We believe we have reached an inflection point in the progression of this pandemic in Alberta. For at least some of the new cases over the weekend, public health officials have not confirmed a travel history or close contact with a traveler. This indicates community spread. However, follow-up investigations are continuing. It is very important to emphasize that here in Alberta and around the world, international travel is the key element of transmission. Albertans returning to home from abroad or foreign nationals coming to Alberta are critical. It is critical that they respect the advice being given by the Government of Alberta. Visitors must be vigilant for symptoms and must immediately self-isolate for 14 days. Frankly, from today onwards, all non-essential travel plans should be cancelled. And let me be clear about that. I still hear about people planning to take spring break outside of the country. If they do so, they may have difficulty getting back into Canada because of the cancellation of flights. And if they do come back, they will be required to self-isolate for 14 days. There is no good reason to be traveling for leisure purposes at this time. I have asked Travel Alberta, in fact, to redirect all of their advertising to informing Canadians who are, for example, snowbirds in overseas locations about the protocols for their return to Alberta to help us manage the COVID-19 response. I want to remind people that seniors and those with compromised immune systems are the ones with the highest risk. So just because you don't feel at risk yourself doesn't matter. We're all responsible for each other's health at this time. I am concerned by reports of inadequate screening and information for people arriving from international flights at our airports, and I will be raising those concerns directly with the Government of Canada.
Following a weekend of apparent disarray at airports across the country, the Canada Border Services Agency is adding new screening questions for travelers arriving in Canada. Several people reported that customs officials were not telling people arriving from outside the country to stay in isolation for 14 days. Travelers will now be asked whether they have symptoms of COVID-19 and must acknowledge that they are being asked to self-isolate for 2 weeks to keep the virus from spreading. The Calgary Flames ownership group has decided to assist part-time arena event workers who have lost shifts due to the NHL pausing the season due to COVID-19. The Flames have sent an email to arena staff that said they would only get paid for a shift if they had not received the legally required 24 hours of notice. There was public backlash to that, and former employee Raymond Lau set up an online fundraising campaign for affected workers that quickly reached tens of thousands of dollars. John Bean, CEO of Calgary Sports and Entertainment, says in a statement that the Flames organization will provide an income bridge support program for qualifying employees. On the national front, Dr. Theresa Tam says Canadians need to act now to curb the spread of the novel form of coronavirus. But she says public health advice and decree can only go so far, and people need to work together. The government is, however, increasing guidance being given to returning travelers.
We now have 4 confirmed cases among the passengers repatriated from the Grand Princess or in quarantine at CFB Trenton. Canada has tested close to 25,000 individuals to date. Internationally, Europe is the epicenter of the outbreak. With cases rapidly increasing in Canada, particularly in British Columbia, Ontario, and Alberta, our window to flatten the curve of the epidemic is narrow. We all need to act now. COVID-19 is a serious public health threat. While this disease is particularly serious for older adults and medically vulnerable people, all ages are at risk. Let me be very clear. Today, I am asking everyone to take strong action to help us delay the spread of COVID-19 and protect as many people as possible. For the public, this means postpone or cancel all travel outside of Canada. That is not absolutely essential. I strongly recommend that all travelers coming from outside of Canada take the additional precaution to self-isolate for 14 days. I am also asking that you avoid large public gatherings and increase your personal physical space from others. Talk to your employer about contingencies for working from home if this becomes necessary. And I cannot stress enough, if you're at high risk of severe illness, practice social distancing and separate yourself whenever and wherever you can.
Here in our city, the Lethbridge Hurricanes announced Sunday that as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and continued travel restrictions, the club has released all players to return home to their families while the season remains suspended. The pandemic is also affecting charitable groups who work with homeless populations. Organizations like Streets Alive are running short on supplies too and are ramping up their efforts to help.
Just the canned stuff, the canned veggies, the canned fruits, and especially canned meats and the soups and the stews. That's really what we need right now. Of course, KD boxes, cake mix boxes, instant noodles, and just the canned soups also. And coffee creamer. Could use a little bit more of that, and some rice, and pork and beans, as we're out of pork and beans, and that's something that we use a lot of. Food
donations can be dropped off at Streets Alive Mission at 323 4th Street South. Meanwhile, south of the border, U.S. President Donald Trump is urging the public to stop hoarding groceries.
You don't have to buy so much. Take it easy. Just relax. People are going in and they're buying more. I remember, I guess during the conversation, Doug of Walmart said that they're buying more than they buy at Christmas. Relax. We're doing great. It all will pass. The folks that we spoke to, they've done a fantastic job. They're going to meet the needs of the public. They're going round the clock if they have to, and they're committed to the communities where they're serving and which they serve so beautifully and have for a long time. And they're buying a lot of additional things to sell. But again, they actually have asked me to say, could you buy a little bit less, please? I thought I'd never hear that from a retailer. All of them are working hand in hand with the federal government as well as the state and local leaders to ensure food and essentials are constantly available. And they'll do it. There's no shortages. We have no shortages other than people are buying anywhere from 3 to 5 times what they would normally buy. It's going to be there for a long time. Our supply chains in America are the most powerful in the world, and they're all working very hard. They're working around the clock. And the stores are stocking up at a level that's beyond Christmas time. And it's great. It was very reassuring speaking to these people. They have it totally in hand.
Closing borders across Europe is going to be one of the key topics of discussion as European Union leaders hold a meeting by teleconference today. Greece is ordering everyone entering the country to self-isolate for 14 days and is extending shop closures to fight the spread of COVID-19. Spain's government is considering a total lockdown after it became the 4th most virus-infected country in the world. Both British Airways and Ryanair are scaling back flights dramatically. Fiat Chrysler is suspending production across most of its European plants through March 27th. 5 people were killed in a shooting at a Springfield, Missouri gas station overnight. The dead include a police officer who responded to the scene and the gunman, who apparently died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Police received multiple calls about shots fired, followed by reports of a vehicle crashing into a gas station and a convenience store. The police chief says the gunman ran inside and began shooting customers and employees. Well, it was a crazy weekend with all the snow, not to mention the cold in southern Alberta, but we do have better weather coming our way. I'll have the forecast coming up right after this short break. And taking a look at our forecast, mainly sunny today with a high of +2, becoming cloudy overnight and dipping down to a low of -10, but with the wind chill it will feel like -18. Tomorrow a mix of sun and cloud with a west wind gusting from 20 to 40, but that will shift to a north wind around noon. We should get up to +2. For Wednesday, cloudy and a 60% chance of flurries again, a high of -8. A lot cooler on Thursday and only getting up to -7 under cloudy skies. On Friday, sunshine and a high of -2, and looking good for the weekend. Sunny and +4 for Saturday, and on Sunday a few clouds and 5 degrees. Checking the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 6 degrees with an average low of -7. Highest temperature in the state recorded back in 1985 at 19 degrees, a record low -33 in 1943. Sunrise was at 7:42 and sunset at 7:38. Well, let's take a look at what things are looking like across the country weather-wise. Victoria and Vancouver are in for a pleasant day today with sunshine and 11 degrees. In Calgary, mainly sunny and +4, while Edmonton will get up to +1, also with sunny skies. In Saskatchewan, a mix of sun and cloud and a high of -5 for Regina. Much the same forecast for Saskatoon today. In Winnipeg, periods of light snow and -6. And in Toronto, a mix of sun and cloud with a high of 3. Partly cloudy for Ottawa with a high of +2. And a gloomy-looking day in Montreal, a mix of rain and snow with a high of -1. In the Maritimes, mainly sunny for Fredericton with a high of -2. A mix of sun and cloud and -2 in Halifax. For Charlottetown, a few flurries on the way with a high of -5. And in St. John's, mainly sunny skies and a high of -4.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. If you love the game of golf, here's an amazing opportunity to be part of the Lethbridge Paradise Canyon Open, taking place June 25th to the 28th. The LPCO is looking for hardworking and dedicated volunteers to help make this event a success. A volunteer recruitment night is being held on Wednesday, March 18th at the Paradise Canyon Golf Resort from 5 to 7 p.m. For more information, call 403-331-8885 or email yoshida.kf@telus.net. The Monarch Community Association is holding their third annual chili cook-off and silent auction on Saturday, March 21st at the Monarch Community Hall. Cook up your favorite chili recipe and bring it for others to taste and vote on whose chili is the best. Doors open at 5:30 p.m. with dinner beginning at 6 and silent auction ending at 8. Admission is a minimum donation of $5. For details, call Russ at 403-360-7944. The 8th Annual Color Fun Run, presented by Volunteer Lethbridge in partnership with the University of Lethbridge, is taking place Sunday, April 5th at the University campus. This family-friendly 5-kilometer walk or run is for charity, with proceeds going to support Volunteer Lethbridge's community building programs and services. For tickets, visit volunteerlethbridge.com, and to volunteer, call Chelsea at 403-332-4320. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
The COVID-19 pandemic is also affecting the entertainment world. Let's take a look at this week's Showbiz Minute.
AP Showbiz Minute. An Australian TV journalist has tested positive for the new coronavirus and says he assumes he contracted it while meeting Rita Wilson in Sydney. Wilson and her husband Tom Hanks have been isolated in an Australian hospital since they were both diagnosed with COVID-19 on March 12th. Richard Wilkins, who has self-isolated since Wilson's diagnosis, said he is surprisingly very well. The Academy of Country Music said Sunday it was postponing its annual awards show from April 5th in Las Vegas, the latest event to be pulled given health advice during the coronavirus pandemic. The plan is now to hold the show in September. Ticket sales at North American movie theatres plunged to their lowest levels in at least 20 years. Onward remained number one, earning $10.5 million. I Still Believe was second with $9.5 million, and Bloodshot debuted third with $9.3 million, according to studio estimates Sunday. The vast majority of people recover from the new virus. According to the World Health Organization, people with mild illness recover in about 2 weeks, while those with more severe illness may take 3 to 6 weeks to recover. This is Nikki Finlay with AP Showbiz Minute.
Amid rising tensions with Iran, 2,800 members of the 82nd Airborne Division remain on standby in the Middle East. The Associated Press was given rare access to see how Americans' Guard of Honor prepares to deploy at a moment's notice.
Does it ever get old?
No, because I'm scared every time. If I wasn't scared, I wouldn't do it.
My mom hates it, because obviously I'm a baby. So my mom's like, you know, that's my child. I don't want him to get hurt. I don't want him to die or anything.
It's 12 hours before the jump. Paratroopers run through an endless checklist as anticipation mounts.
My wife asked me why I'm doing this, and I told her to hopefully one day get over my fear of heights.
Tomorrow, the 82nd Airborne Division will jump into Melgar, Colombia.
Just gotta believe in the parachute to open, and just whatever happens, happens.
Land! Land!
It's a multinational training exercise between U.S. Southern Command and the Colombian Army. But the preparation is as close to reality as possible to ensure these soldiers are always ready.
When you start out younger in the military, you don't recognize the reason that you're doing things.
Sergeant First Class Nathan Fair calls himself a super patriot.
And I got out of the Army in 2006, and when I got out, that's when I realized that there's more to it than just me. There's more. It's about the mission, it's about the men.
Be present with each other, be present with the Colombians, but the biggest one is be present with each other. Because the time you have in this company, your platoon, your squad, your section, it's not forever.
And we'll bound her over the fence again, get set up here. No, my father was in the military. He actually served in the 82nd.
Everyone here has a why.
Growing up, always idoled my father, and he's definitely my biggest role model. And so getting to see him jump out of airplanes always inspired me to do it.
third-generation airborne, so I grew up hearing tons of stories from my grandpa and my dad and a bunch of my uncles.
Sergeant Sarah Sanders, who leads a team of medics, was the only woman sent from Fort Bragg on this training exercise.
I danced my entire life, and I always said, like, everybody else wanted to be professional ballerinas and all this. I was like, no, I want to be in the Army. Is it they're going to come and land somewhere else and then get on?
Since enlisting at 18, Sanders simply wanted to be treated as an equal.
90% of the people were super welcoming, didn't view me as anything other than one of the guys. It was a matter of not accepting any special treatment.
In the days leading up to the exercise, the Americans and Colombians map out every aspect of the event. Right now, the medic team is looking at the drop zone, trying to assess any potential hazards and if they will be able to access a casualty.
There's an old saying around Fort Bragg. When the president calls 911, the 82nd Airborne Division answers the phone.
We do anything and everything with intent. As you've seen with this whole operation, it didn't take us long to establish ourselves here in Colombia.
These soldiers live life on standby.
We pride ourselves on being able to deploy a battalion-sized element overseas in under 18 hours.
And that's exactly what happened on New Year's Eve. Amid rising tensions with Iran, the Immediate Response Force was activated, deploying 3,000 paratroopers from Fort Bragg to the Middle East within days.
With either hand, grasp the ripcord handle. Throw your head back.
These soldiers know they could be next.
I want to say I do this not for fun, just to prove myself. I would say I feel like I had something to prove to myself, and that's why I'm here.
Have you proven yourself yet?
Not yet.
After days of long rehearsals, it's jump day.
What's going through your mind right now?
I'm just ready to get it over with. Like, jumping, it's not that scary to me.
Anybody who tells you they're not a little bit nervous doing this is either lying to you or they have something wrong upstairs.
American and Colombian paratroopers suit up.
And you can route it back through?
With more than 100 pounds of gear. They'll be jumping together.
Standing inches away from the ledge of a door with, winds up to 160 mile an hour, just gusting right outside. It's something you can't experience going to Six Flags.
This moment on the edge is what a paratrooper lives for.
Most soldiers will never jump into a foreign country, and this exercise landed both American and Colombian paratroopers the right to wear each other's jump wings.
My guys are really young. For many of them, this is their first time outside of the country, and it's really good to see them interact with the host nation and see that, hey, this guy is exactly like you, doing the exact same thing that you're doing, and if it comes to it, and we have to fight together, then they know we got each other's back.
For these paratroopers, what was an alliance on paper just days ago is now a bond among soldiers.
Fascinating story to see what's going on behind the scenes. All Hands and Hearts is a humanitarian group which comes to the aid of communities that are devastated by catastrophes like tornadoes and hurricanes. Jeanette Roche has that story coming up shortly, right after this break.